Okay, great. We're live now, guys. This is fantastic. So we've got a big projector in the back here with showing you the live crowd. We've got Max here beside me. You get some light on me so I don't seem like in the dark. We do have light down here in Wellington, despite the fact that it looks like there's no light. We've got a good breakfast put on by Meetings on the Terrace, so thank you very much to them. We've got Steve waiting in the wings. Now let's just have a look a bit at the stream. If you guys can just give us a bit of a view on what you think of the sound quality. Just checking a sound quality for everyone. If someone can make a bit of a comment. There's about a 10-second delay, so we're just going to wait for them to get back to us, and then we can go live. We've got quite a few people joining us from around New Zealand. We've got people down in Dunedin, got Otago University down there.
Down South Island.
Yep, down the South Island, that's right. We've got people, sounds good, okay, got thumbs up. Some from SITA, thank you very much. And we've got people up in Auckland as well, so hopefully it's not raining up there anymore. With a bit of luck, there's decent.
I thought we sorted that out last night.
Yeah, I hope that we did. That's for sure. But we'll see if what we can do here. So thanks very much for joining us. We're coming to you from Wellington, New Zealand. I know we have some international people joining us. So just so you know, we've got a beautiful morning here, nice windy morning in Wellington. The sun's just coming up. It was nice and brisk on our walk today. I walked here. I'll chat with Max outside in the non-raining Wellington area, which is quite pleasant. We've got two speakers today. We've got Steve and Max. They're going to be talking. Steve's going to be talking about benefits, and Max is going to be talking about a program he was involved in that had both an agile and a waterfall approach within the same program, and give us a little bit of a background about how we got into project management and how project management for him has been quite transformational with regards to application of methodologies and things. We've got a good lineup, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. I'll go straight on and get Steve to start telling us about his topic. So Steve, go for it.
Okay, I'll get my slides up. Hopefully you can hear me. Screen share.
Can you? So you're the live on the screen.
Share. Oh, right. Let's make that a bit bigger. And slideshow.
That's right. We all have technology issues.
Play from current slide. So hopefully you've got a slide. Project benefit insights. Well, hey, we do. The technology works. Hi. Yeah, I suppose what I'm trying to do here is I don't know how much overlap we have between last night's session or yesterday morning session for you guys, yesterday evening for me. Was it yesterday or the day before? I don't know. Wherever it was. The Auckland session. There's a bit of overlap. What about the audience, Scott? Do we have any overlap between the two sessions?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of overlap, but generally, people are going to be interested in hearing your stuff again. You get a lot of information in the Auckland.
But a little bit of overlap, clearly. I mean, what I was talking, to put it in context, what I was talking about in Auckland, rather rapidly talking, I only had 15 minutes, as again tonight, we're talking about ways to take a kind of benefits focus, to change the focus of projects from activity to a benefits focus, and kind of looked at it from a project basis in terms of starting with the end in mind, and I'm going to touch on that again, but expand upon it, taking a program approach, and then also taking a portfolio, starting with a strategy. But I suppose what I wanted to get to today is okay, but having said we should be benefits focused, what are the, cut to the chase, Steve. I don't want to do the course. I don't want to read your book. In 15 minutes, 13 minutes, what are the main things that I need to do, or should we think about doing, if we're going to shift to a benefits focus? And I think really we've got to combine here benefits practices. It's about process, but it's also about governance, and it's about a culture, value culture. So in everything I'm talking about all three: what we do, how we govern it, and that's the accountability and so forth. We'll come on to that. And then the culture, the way we do things. Because ultimately, I say benefits management is not a tool set or a toolkit. It's a mindset. It's a mindset that says we treat our projects and programs as investments. I should also say, I've got to hands up. I believe I am now in the homeland of good or effective around the world. I sing the praises of New Zealand in general, but in particular, Wellington. You've got so many people doing really interesting stuff in the field, and every time I've been there, so working with the guys Grant and Jonathan, and I forget all the other names at Department of Internal Affairs, I think they were, and Treasury, and working then talking to people in various departments. And again, I apologize. I've met so many people doing so many exciting things. I remember Landon, I think it was in defense, and we're doing some great work. But there are so many others, and I forget the names. But the community of interest that you have in Wellington, I think, is a model for, or hopefully still a model for other jurisdictions. So that's where I want to go. Just to repeat that from last night, the stake in the ground, benefits the rationale. That's why we make an investment in a project or program, or it should be, to make things better, to improve things, and to improve things in a way that the scale of the improvement exceeds the cost of delivering the improvement. In other words, if you're trying to save money, not much point spending $100 to save 30. Kind of keep doing that, you end up in like ancient Rome. You can't keep wasting resources. So benefits are a rationale. That's why, or at least why we should make, why we make investments in projects, programs, and portfolios. And yet the track record is pretty worrying. It's pretty poor worldwide. Infrastructure projects, IT, the Olympics, big sporting events, outsourcing, mergers and acquisitions in the private sector. And you could debate. We could actually debate whether that's a true picture, but actually that's the overwhelming result of research. Between 50 and 70% failure rate. Even the PMI are the world's optimists. They say only 50% of projects fail. Now you say, well, if any other profession said, we only fail 50% of the time. If the doctors in Wellington said, look, don't worry, guys, we only kill 50% of our patients, or the teachers said, don't worry, we only fail 50% of the children, you'd say, what's wrong with you people? You're supposed to be professionals. Go and get some training. It's outrageous. And yet somehow, but actually, I'm not entirely certain it is really 50%, but clearly there is a problem, particularly in the larger, more complex areas. But if we accept that things aren't as good, whatever the number is, things aren't as good as they should be, well, what are the root causes? And we tend to talk about things like optimism bias and strategic misrepresentation. So our business cases aren't reliable or accurate, or they don't turn out to be reliable or accurate. But I think, I love this quote from Schaefer and Thompson, because I think that it gets to the root cause. Yes, there are optimism biases, but what makes those biases more powerful is the fact that we invest in stuff, we invest in activities, we do stuff. Soldiers want more tanks, sailors want more boats, pilots want more planes, and then we write the business case to justify what we want to do anyway. So we use benefits to justify the project rather than starting with the benefits we want to realize and then designing the project to realize the benefits. So that's a fundamental root cause of the problem. What I want to talk about tonight, so how do we get that shift? Well, I want to talk about three things. One is that the idea at a project base, we should start with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind, begin with the benefits. Secondly, I want to talk about the accountability. What about accountability? What does accountability, real accountability, mean in terms of benefits? And thirdly, touch on the area of a value culture that takes, it doesn't focus on delivery, it focuses on results. So let's go along there. So number one, talked last night about start with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind. And I talked about the Victorian investment logic map as an example. And the idea is that before you do anything, we sit down and we start thinking about what's the problem. And when we know what the problem, or even better, the opportunity, what is the opportunity we want to exploit, or what's the problem we're trying to solve, when we're clear about that, what will the benefits be? The measurable improvements. Benefits are the measurable improvements to someone, and therefore we should always seek to validate the benefit with that someone. What will the benefits be? And then we should design the solution to deliver the benefits. But, and this is where we move on from last night, I remember doing a session in Victoria, in Brisbane rather, and I was talking about this, and I said, our friends down in Victoria, they've come up with this model. I quite like it. It's actually the Cranfield Benefits Dependency Network turned around. But because I read from left to right, I quite like the Victorian approach. Start with the problem on the left-hand side. I read left to right rather than right to left. And one of the guys on the course actually went back to his office and he rang me and he said, Steve, you got back to the office and there's an investment logic map on my desk. And it doesn't look like anything you showed us. Can I bring it back to you and show you tomorrow? I said, absolutely, come along, we'll have a coffee. And he came along, we sat down in Brisbane and we had a look at this thing and it was just, my God, no, they just put investment logic map on the top and they thought they could get away with it. It was just a whole load of mumbo jumbo, just a whole load of IT. And at the end, Queensland, the happy state, Queensland, the sunshine state, Queensland for Queenslanders, all this sort of mumbo jumbo, completely not measurable, not attributable, no way you could validate it, no logic chain whatsoever. So what's fundamental is that we should be able to challenge. What about challenge? And so what I said to the guys last night, I promised them I would then today cover what sort of questions should you ask? And so the questions there on the right-hand side, I've developed this from the Victorian, give them their credit. They have a questionnaire, but I've kind of developed it somewhat. First of all, it should be the benefits map, the investment logic map should be the story of the change on a page. One page, it should tell the story of the change. Now, when I said this in Brisbane, of that course I was talking about, I said, basically putting it into English, could your grandmother understand it? And one of the ladies from Brisbane said, no, she's dead. Well, I said, I didn't mean your specific grandmother, just a typical, could a layperson understand it? Secondly, is the problem or the opportunity, strategic drivers or investment objectives, are they clearly and appropriately defined? And we spoke last night about the problem or the difficulty often in identifying the problem. Often we jump to a solution. The hammer in search of the nail. We really got to give it a little more thought. Have we really identified what the root cause of the problem is so we could address it appropriately? Thirdly, are the benefits identified? If they are realized, would that confirm that the problem has been solved or the opportunity has been exploited? Are the benefits, do they pass the so what test? This is fundamental because people say, most business cases I see, particularly in the public sector, and we were talking last night, and the guy, James, actually then when he spoke about what he'd been doing in Auckland, he actually talked about the business cases often have, half an hour for this person and half an hour for that person. And I say, so what? The benefit is not the half an hour we've saved in Scott's time. The benefit is what Scott does with that half an hour. If we don't do anything with the time we saved, then it has no benefit whatsoever, no value whatsoever. It's what we do with the time. So the so what test, and we run through that, the example, for example, from Victoria on the left-hand side, benefit number one, strengthen the Victorian community. What does that mean? Benefits are measurable improvements, perceived as positive by someone. What does that mean? Improve Victoria's industry. I don't know. Enhance Victoria's arts profile. Well, maybe. Okay. But we need to be a little bit more specific in the language. We've got intermediate, end and disbenefits. Okay. Measurable terms. That's the point. We've got to know, be a lot more specific. And lastly, does the solution pass the necessary and sufficient test? In other words, if we did that solution, would we realize those benefits? And is it, or have we studied filling it up, padding it with additional activity. You remember anyone from IT will probably remember. You remember those of a certain age. We remember the year 2000. And there were all these projects, all designed as year 2000 projects, because we thought the doors were all going to swing open, the computers would fail on the 1st of January 2000, because the clocks in the computers would tick over, and the digits only ran up to 31, 12, 99. And so what would happen when oh dear. So we had all these projects, and of course what the IT projects did was they padded all these year 2000 projects with a whole load of functionality that they couldn't get funded in any other way. So we've got to be a little bit careful with our mandatory projects, that we don't invest in stuff that isn't required. So we've got a bit of a challenge, actively challenge the benefits that are presented. Are they really measurable? Do they really, those benefits relate to the problem? Do they demonstrate that the problem's been solved or the opportunity has been exploited? But as the PMI say there, commencement of work is driven by benefits identification. So start with end in mind. Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. Let's identify the benefits. That's step number one. And we only think about solution when, in other words, we don't say we're going to get benefits from the solution. We say we want these benefits. What's the best way of delivering those benefits? So we're shifting the whole emphasis. So that's the first thing. Second thing, looking at governance. Well, do you remember I said benefits are a measurable improvement perceived as positive by a stakeholder? Well, benefits management is a stakeholder engagement activity. This is not something you do in your bedroom or, failing to leave the room. You've got to get out and talk to stakeholders. What does it mean to them? What's the value to them? We need to validate benefits with benefit owners. And the model on the left-hand side, which you can't read because it's too complex and arrows all over the place, but it was just to illustrate. This was the model that we originally implemented in criminal justice IT, because we used to have a whole load of projects from the police delivering benefits to the courts, and we had court systems claiming benefits to the police, and suddenly realized that, of course, the police said about the court system, no, and the court said no. No one ever agreed the benefits with these other organizations. So there was no chance that if they were realized, no one known, no work was being done on it. So we said that can't continue. Any benefits got to be agreed with the user. And if the user, I say the benefit's worth £100 or $100. If the recipient says it's only worth 50, then at a portfolio level, we only count what the recipient says, because the project wants to go high. The user, the benefit owner, is a little bit more realistic, or maybe pessimistic. So we've got to kind of do some work there. And so it's whole idea of benefit owners. And there's this wonderful guide, and you've got to give credit to, and I always include it in the slides, and you can download. It's still available online, but the New Zealand government published it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I remember we came over several years ago, and I did these sessions all over New Zealand with Jonathan and Grant from Department of Internal Affairs. And at the end, I was demob happy. I thought, going home. And Jonathan drove me to the airport, and he said, we're going to produce all these guides for these different stakeholder groups. So, great idea, Jonathan, great idea. Get me out of here. And Jonathan said, I think the first one will be the benefit owner. We're going to do the benefit owner first. So, great idea, Jonathan, great idea. See you in a year's time. Got out the car, got on the plane, fell asleep on the plane, and woke up, and it'd been bubbling around. What a brilliant idea. Because it never... normally if you say, well, we're going to write a guide on benefits management, who do you write it for? Project managers or project sponsors, or that kind of the techies. No, write it for the whoever the benefits have been delivered to, how to excel as a benefit owner. So hopefully you guys are still getting plenty of downloads from all around the world as I spread the message. But it's so fundamental. So number one, agree the benefits with the user, and even better, book them. So if you're going to say we're going to save $100 out that budget, well, take the $100 out of the budget. Now the user's got an interest in making sure it's not just an unfunded pressure, making sure the change actually delivers the benefit. So whether it's financial benefit or a non-financial benefit, that model on the left, if we had a claim about a contribution to our strategic objectives, Okay, so you're going to improve public confidence. Okay, we go and see the guy in charge of public confidence. Do you agree? If you're saying we're improving victims and witness care, do they agree? And only if they agree, and then we say, do you agree? They say, yeah. I say, can you put it in your plan, please? And we want to see it in the plan. So we're booking the benefits. Stephen Kaplan says, people ask me how to track benefits. So I said, don't track them, book them. Book them. Now, so we're getting some real accountability for benefits. And just another example here. This is from Telstra in Australia, across the pond in Australia, and they won. You can see that they were PMO of the year in 2019. Won the award at the PMI conference in. God, I can't remember. I think it was in Sydney. Might have been Brisbane. Anyway, I was there and I heard them do the talk, and they said we're aiming to be world class in managing benefits, and they did this point about tracking benefits through to the bottom line, the financial benefits through to their KPIs, their customer improvement benefits in terms of net promoter score, the NPS scores. So they expect to see an improvement in those areas. And they said, actually, the next point, which I mustn't jump ahead. So benefit owners booking the benefits, real accountability for benefits. And the other point they made was that they said their next step was to link the continued funding for projects to benefits. And this is what I'm alluding to on this slide, that we have a series of gateways, stage gates. The new model in the UK, the Infrastructure Projects Authority, is shown there. And the idea, you have these various stages, you have assurance reviews. These are the traditional gateways, but at the kind of middle point of it says gates / decision points. This is a different sort of gate. This is not advice, which are those assurance reviews. This is a decision point. Do we stop? Do we hold? Or do we go ahead? And the idea is that we need to be more like a professional gambler, because a professional gambler is not a professional poker player is not a gambler. A professional poker player is a risk manager. They manage risk actively. They don't walk into the game and put all their money down and go, ooh, I hope I win. They put a bit down. They look at the cards. As their confidence in victory grows, so they make incremental bets. The amount they invest grows, and they always keep some back for the next hand. But what do? We put a business case in. Do we approve it? 300 million, please. Once you've got the money, one of the guys in the NEO in the UK, Tim Banfield, called it the conspiracy of continuation. He said, everyone knows, just get the thing approved, and it's almost impossible to stop it. Whenever we stop projects, usually it's years late, and the hole has got deeper and deeper. So rather than just putting all the money down, and I did a session for the NHS a few years ago, and one of the guys said, look, Steve, I'm working on this big program. A few years ago, we put our business case up. It was 7 billion at that point. What are the first 5 things we should have done? I said, not 5, just 1, give the money back. Why has anyone given you 7 billion? And of course, they didn't physically give them the money, but they knew they'd got it. And actually, when it was cancelled, they'd spent 12 billion. That's 12,000 million pounds of taxpayers' money for about 2 billion of benefit. Bit embarrassing. So incremental bets and with real accountability, staged release of funding, releasing funding in stages. And McKinsey's build on this. McKinsey's actually say the way to prune projects proactively, do it properly, is to change the default option. The default option is we continue to get funded unless someone does something to stop us. No, they said, when you get to the next gateway, the default option should be no more funding until you turn up and persuade us that we should carry on. The case is still valid. Then we continue. So they suggest changing the default options. It's kind of interesting. The last point. So we talked about accountability. I've talked about start with end in mind, and linked to accountability and governance is what I say at the bottom there. What I don't say. John Thorpe, my good friend John Thorpe, says, John Thorpe from Canada, author of The Information Paradox, so a grandfather of benefits management, or effective benefits management. He talks about activist accountability. In other words, the buck doesn't stop here. It starts here. I hold myself to account, because what we see are shown in those quotes on the left-hand side. In other words, they say, if you could do everything that Michael Payne says, you too will only lose 15% of your benefits. And Sam Rentner's a really good guy. I work with Sam. I wrote a book with Sam. Sam Rentner says, or they say about Sam, if you do everything that Sam Rentner says, you too will only lose 20% of your benefits. Well, why don't we just take 20% off the top to start with? If 80% is the best we could ever do, it's crazy. Why? Shouldn't things get better? As we learn more, shouldn't benefits go up? As we learn more, shouldn't projects become more achievable? Shouldn't things, it's wild. I remember I did a session for the Welsh Government a few years ago in Cardiff, and one of the SROs, so these are the guys who are supposed to be accountable for benefits management, he said to me, Steve, you can't hold me to account. He said, I'm the SRO, but you can't hold me to account because my program crosses the Welsh Government. And I can't be held accountable. I don't control all the changes. And I said to him, look, the world is full of people who say it's not in my job description. If you as the SRO don't say, I don't care what I could directly control, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to go around to Scott's office and I'm going to keep knocking on his door till he gets on board. I'm going to hassle people until they're on board. If you don't do that, mate, who is? And our organizations are full of people who want to change the world. And yet usually we just hammer all the creativity out of them. Very sad. So a value culture based upon leadership, premised on activist accountability, but also transparency. And I have to say, my experience is transparency trumps accountability. And we normally, if we want to change something, we reach for the accountability stick. We think, who can I blame? Scott, if it all goes wrong, Scott, we're going to sack you. Because now Scott is really empowered, isn't he? Now he's really going to be fired up. No. Transparency is where it's at. And so one-page reports, make sure that everyone knows what the benefits are, and we report against that. And when we, I said this example on the left-hand side, we used to use the top 10 benefits. I mellowed. I then went to the top 3 benefits. On the right-hand side, this is a model from Dubai Customs, and I was there, and they showed me the model. They had all these little bubbles on the chart. Lovely. And I said, well, what happens if I click one of those bubbles? So we did, and you get the old benefits report on each project, and you could then drill down further and further. So creating transparency about benefits, not trying to hide it away, so everyone is clear. So from the top 10 to the top 3, just focus on the benefits that really make the difference. Phew. How are we doing on time?
We're doing pretty well. Yeah,
right,
we're
cool.
getting lots of benefit from the time, so we're good.
Right.
We're good. Let me just check on the on the comments here. Let's see what we've got in. So just checking to see if anyone's got any questions from the YouTube group. Questions?
I mean, the public sector guys. I see. Is the anyone from public? Is the benefits management community of interest still active?
I'm not sure if it is actually. I think there's a group. There's a number of groups around, but I think with COVID and all those things, I think things slowed down a bit. So not quite at the same levels it used to be when you were coming down.
I heard rumours. I think Grant moved on, and it just.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So often these things rely on an individual to drive them, but that's partly why we're having these events as well, to try and get a little bit more conversation going on, a few more people talking about benefits and talking about project management in general. So and it's interesting actually you refer to effectively benefits management is risk management. Managing the money is all about risk management, and we do have it's a bit of a plug. A bit of a plug for your fellow presenter in March. We have Ruth Murray Webster presenting then, so be sure to for people to enroll in that those presentations. There'll be another 2 again in Auckland, one in Auckland, one in Wellington. And Ruth was the editor of the latest version of Management of Risk and also Managing Successful Programs, MSP. So yeah, do sign up for that. Now, and there's no questions coming from the online group. How about you guys? Yes, you ask, and I think my microphone's not actually working. So you ask, and I'll relay it back to him, or maybe he'll hear you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Jensen. The question for Stephen is: when we look at outcomes, how do we align them with the United Nations Sustainable Development Measures? So here in the New Zealand government with Treasury, we have the living standard. So how are the benefits categorised in social, economic and environmental? There is a development that we are doing in that space, and just wanted to get your kind of global thought leader kind of view about how do we link those big juicy outcomes. So in a property development sense, we have measures for truancy rates, we have measures around rheumatic fever. So how are we investing in that development, that social large development, to deliver these big juicy outcomes that are linked to living standards and United Nations sustainability measures? I just wanted to get some comments on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I kind of was a bit echoey, but I think what you were saying was, look, we've got these kind of socio-environmental targets that we have to adhere to, and we've devised some measures. And how do benefits and outcomes align with that? First of all, I would say, if we can kind of do the second bit first. Often people talk about, if we take the MSP model, it says we have, projects deliver outputs create a capability, the capability gets transitioned into business as usual. Once it is the new business as usual, that creates an outcome, and the outcome results in measurable improvements, and those are the benefits. Now, I think I've spoken to Scott before, and we've done some videos. That all kind of works and seems logical until you actually try to think of a practical example. And then sometimes the benefit sounds a bit like the outcome, and the outcome sounds like a bit like the benefit. And actually, if it, I say, if it waddles and it quacks, it's a duck. Benefits are measurable improvements that people perceive as positive. So it's something good that we can measure. Now, what we should do, of course, and I think the New Zealand government actually said this in one of their guides, we shouldn't do this kind of bottom up. We should do it top down. In other words, they said something about, there's a quote about focusing on benefits that don't relate to strategy is a kind of waste of resources. We should be focusing on the benefits. In other words, the benefit, if you like, if you've said we have this environmental target, environmental objective, and we define these targets, those targets actually are the benefits, or anything that contributes to that or helps you deliver that target are the benefits that we should be interested in. So I'm very keen, and I touched on this last night, I didn't touch on it tonight, on taking a portfolio approach, which means you start with your strategic objectives. Actually, I'll just go back to last night's slides. So that model there, hopefully people see that. If you take on the right-hand side, you've got Rail's strategic objectives, and the benefits would be linked to those strategic objectives. So whatever model you have, if you have programs and projects, whatever model you have, whatever framework you use, it should link up. The point is and on the left-hand side, portfolios are concerned with strategic objectives, and the outcomes and benefits should link into those strategic objectives. And the example I gave was that model on there, which is from the Office of National Statistics. You can see it, yeah, in the UK, where basically you got your strategic drivers and your investment objectives for any project. And then we said, look, what would benefits be in this portfolio, in this organization? What would benefits of any project be? Well, we would have financial benefits, which have to be cashable, reduced expenditure or net revenue generation. That was number 2. We had risk reduction, stopping or reducing the chances of bad things happening. And we had the outputs, systems failure, loss of data, and so forth. But number 1, what does the ONS exist to do? It exists to produce statistical reports. Who does it produce them for? Customers, stakeholders. Who? Treasury, Bank of England. Okay, so there must be some measures of the value that we provide to them, and there are. And so the benefits were defined in those terms. And then each project would articulate its benefits under those headings. And of course, we had further guidance to explain what they meant. So I would say, I think you guys did. I know there was stuff on the New Zealand government website where they identified a whole lot of cross-government targets and issues, and then drilled down into the various measures and metrics that projects should align with. So hopefully that, I would say, where those things have already been. I mean, clearly, if you've got a target, if you've got an objective, and we haven't got measures already articulated, then there's a bit of thinking to go on. But we should be looking at making sure our projects and programs can show the contribution. And I was talking to a UK government department earlier today, and they said, Steve, we've been listening to you, and we want to come along and do the session. You want to fire them up. And I said, I've got the flamethrower, I'm going to set them on fire. And she said, we're going to talk about strategic alignment. I said, wash your mouth out. I'm not talking about strategic, I'm talking about strategic contribution. God, strategic alignment, I used to say, you get a business case, it says you've got 5 strategic objectives, like your socio-economic ones, and it's environmental. We're aligned, we're highly aligned, 200 million, please. Meaningless. Well, I said, what do you think they're going to say? Not aligned? What's the contribution? How will I know? You say, we're aligned with reduced carbon emissions. Okay, how and by how much? Yeah. And there's someone in New Zealand's responsible for that. And we go talk to them, what's your, because I remember we had a management information system going in, and they stole, and this was in prisons and probation over here. And they said, this will contribute towards improved offender management. Kind of sounds good. Management information system, well, it should improve it. So we went and spoke to the guys in charge of offender management and said, you've got this new management information system coming along. What difference is it going to make? And he said, well, I don't know. I said, because it should do, but it's not in my plans. So we crossed it off. Ridiculous. People claim all these benefits. We're going to enable this. We're going to enable that. Unless someone puts it in their plan, we wouldn't count it. So I
think even more than that too. It's not just about actually putting it in the plan and measuring it, or putting in the plan and giving some figures. It's actually measuring it then afterwards, right?
Absolutely, with the commitment to it. That's why it's about booking them if you can.
Yeah, exactly. If you can book them and make someone accountable for it, they're more likely to go, I don't think that's it, right?
Yeah, you're not forcing them to be accountable. This is an example I gave last night.
Yeah. Okay, now we would love to hear more about your interesting conversations in the New Zealand in the UK government, but because it's always good to see everyone else doing a pretty poor job. I thought it was great that you showed Queensland and Australia, and that's perfect for New Zealand.
Please. I mean, I said the worst is the UK. I'm always horrified, when people say, "Oh, they do this in the UK and do that in the UK." Really? Comes as a shock. I mean, most government departments in the UK treat it as a badge of honour not to do what Treasury tell them to do. I mean, why would we do that? It's crazy.
I'm meeting with Treasury later. Okay, you got to say nice things.
Okay, so I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I'm
among friends tonight.
I'm going to get you to stop sharing your screen. And then we're going to get Max up here to sit in the hot seat, and I'll pin this so hopefully it'll be larger on the. Now, as much as I see there are some, there might be some questions. I'm going to go through later and find out if there are any questions through the chat. So if anyone's got questions that are left there that they would like us to answer, please put them in the chat, and we're going to get Steve to answer some of those questions. And that's the same for the guys here at the live venue. So I'm going to get Max to come in and give us a rundown. He's actually been talking to me about a project he's working on at the moment. I don't know if it's hush hush, but it's to do with climate change and things, which is pretty exciting. So we'll have to get him back for that, I think, at a later date. In the meantime, though, let's talk about starting up a project. Let's talk about the differences between working in having an agile project and a waterfall project in the same sort of program. So yeah, hopefully it looks like I'm the main person on the screen, which means you'll be the main person. I'll put the lights on to hopefully mean that you don't get to.
Look at this.
Yep, there we go. How's that? So you can see the hot seat there? Cool.
Hi.
You can see everything? Is that me? No, we've got a delay. Here we are.
There is a little bit of delay.
Steve, you can hear us? See us?
Come up eventually. There we go.
Awesome. All right, Morena whānau. So awesome. Thanks, Scott, for having me, and everyone else that's here. It's awesome, and I think when I got called up to come and do this, Scott was like rang me and said, "Hey, look, we're going to talk. You're an alumni." I'm like, "What? What is that?" You're one of the as Steve was putting it, the grandfather, father, son type scenarios. But just quickly, what I want to touch on and leave you thinking for this 5 minutes that I've got. Thanks, Steve. Is three things to walk away with. One is kind of understanding for those. I mean, we're all project managers and program managers in the house here, but for those that really appreciate what it can do for you and your family, that's the first thing. Second thing is about Prince 2, the methodology, and what it did for me and how it benefited myself and my future and family and aspirations. And then quickly I'll go over the SITA contract, which was quite a bit of a blast, and I'll skim over that, and that talks about, as Scott was alluding to, around going in with the Prince 2 badge, hat, jacket on, and finding that the stakeholder or my boss essentially was more of an agile guy, and how we had to morph the two together a few years ago before it all became this big hot topic. So a bit about me. As I was saying, I got kind of roped into being certified in 2006 with Scott, and that was another whole adventure for another time. 10 years traveling the world, doing 2 or 3 times, doing a bunch of big chunky programs and projects using my Prince 2 hat, if you like to call it. Came back to New Zealand, decided to move to Queenstown. What a great idea that was at the time. And then that was when Queenstown had no roundabouts, no lights, and it was kind of a raw type a community. Great place to live, great place to bring up your family. But that's when you could buy a house for like $300,000-$400,000. It was pretty awesome place to be. And then while I was down there, I finished a whole bunch of projects around the world, and then went and did some stuff with Westpac and Magic Memories and some other bits and pieces. So that's kind of just a high level review. But the thing that was the key takeaway is about why I love being a project manager. And when I'm talking with my team, or as you start up a team and you get the team together, the philosophy I learned very early through other mentors as well on the road was that I find it always starts with the people. It goes people, process, then product or project or whatever you're delivering, kind of in that order rather than coming back the other way. And the reason I see it work that way is because I've tried going the other way instead of starting with the people first. And because as a project manager, you get to front up, be your authentic self, and take all your toolbox or your kit sets of everything that you've learned over the last 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years for some, and implement it, right? But it always comes back to the people aspect. And so the first thing I really enjoy is about project managers, for those that are either starting this journey or halfway through the journey or want to get more training around this journey. CC Learning, just a plug for you, is that you always get to keep learning and growing. I think one of the things that when I start up a team, is that I say to them, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And so I think that whole thing around bring the people along is a big thing for me as a project manager. You get to understand who you really are and what your real calling is. I've had project managers try to be BAs. I've had BAs try to be project managers. Testers try to be PMs. It's a whole raft of things, and we could talk for ages about all the different roles and responsibilities around all that kind of stuff and how you set it up and structure it. But at the end of the day, as the project manager or the senior project manager or program manager, whatever role you're in, it's about taking those people along the journey of how you want to deliver something with the customer. Because as Steve was saying earlier, and I really loved how he honed in on that, what is the true benefit and value to the customer, and keep it simple. It doesn't have to be really complicated. You also get to, the thing I love the most about this position is you get to educate, encourage and enable others to either better themselves or to dig in and strip the onion back and actually help them evolve. And when you see that, there's nothing more powerful other than when you get into the C, no abbreviation, Scott, the closing down a project and seeing it come through, depending whatever stage you're at, is seeing people grow in the journey of project management. So that's kind of the key thing for me around being a good project manager. And it's fun, you know. I think sometimes we take the fun out of being a project manager, and I was on site doing this kind of some cultural awareness and culture change around this iwi, doing, you know, understanding some of the projects that they're going through and why some of them are failing, etc., or they've got challenges with, sorry. And one of the things that came clearly is that they were all really serious, and they're all really about documentation and documentation. There is that aspect of it, that's true, but no one was kind of having much fun. They all seemed pretty down and out and grumpy and looking over their shoulder, and it was like, come on guys, you know, are we here to have fun as well, but also to enjoy the journey? I mean, if you're confident, it's like, you know, the All Blacks, they train and train and train and train and train, and then on the day they go out and they just do their best. They bring their A game, right? And so I think as a project manager, you can have all the great training in the world, you can have all the great lessons learned, so to speak, but if you're not having fun, you know, it's kind of, for me, it's but anywho, that's another whole conversation. The next one is around Prince 2, and so that was project management. The second point is around Prince 2, the method of the methodology. How I enlightened it, it doesn't sync with everyone, so let it stew with you for a bit, is Prince 2 gives you like the Google Maps of projects while having fun. Right, and there's a serious aspect of it as well about making sure that you start it up correctly, make sure you drive it through, you're managing everything, as Steve was saying, through his life cycle, and importantly closing it down. But there's also the aspect of how you can bring what you know to the table and what values and benefits and everything that you guys have just learned now in the way that makes you as a project manager, because there's nothing worse, and I've seen it about 3 years ago, I was running the EPMO for Waka Kotahi, and we had 52 PMs and senior PMs and program managers reporting into me across 100-something projects and portfolios. And the one thing I really loved about our weekly meetings was the guys that turned up and told us some really cool stuff about how they implemented that methodology in their own personal life, like whether that was making a fence, whether that was planning their kid's wedding, whether that was, and it was kind of like taking the professionalism of what they do and how they do it out into their personal lives, and it would become kind of this culture. And it was awesome. And I think when I get to that, when we as leaders get to that point, it's just to see it unravel itself is awesome. It's a real big life-changing kind of scenario. And one of the things, I know everyone's heard about this, is like, again, being careful that you don't come out the gate so fast. Like there's that proverb that talks about, you know, why would you sprint down there and get startup happening, you know, get initiated and have them start planning, go, and do the whole thing in about 3 days, where you would sprint down there and shoot one buffalo to feed a couple of years, or just walk down there, you know, walk down there and and shoot a heap of buffaloes to feed the whole village. There is that theory as well that you can apply to everything and anything that you do in project management. And I firmly believe Prince 2 is that's kind of what's been my saving grace to, you know, get me to where I am today in a lifestyle where I don't have to work, but also want to work, because I have so much experiences and things to offer others, especially around our tikanga and around our Māori community as well. To bring them up to speed and to also ensure that they can offer all this really cool stuff using this methodology. So I believe, in my own humble opinion, is that this method can be used from international command standards. You know, Steve talked about all this cool stuff he's got going on, RFID tagging and Ferraris and Hummers in the Middle East, to building future plans with some of, just last night I was out at the Rimatuks, dealing with some of the hardest, toughest, roughest men of prison, and almost building life plans for them and seeing how they can go from stage to stage or stage gate to stage gate, but not using that analogy, to help them rescue themselves. And their benefits was, you know, to prevent them from suicide and, you know, getting over all the other dysfunctional behaviours that they want to overcome. So an awesome broad range of things that you can use this methodology about. So what have we got? 2 minutes. Very quickly, the SITA program. So being a good project manager and using a methodology, and we all know that and we all breathe that, but that's just another spin on it. SITA is a, when we go flying, we pay a certain amount of fee into this Zeta Network, which connects all the international airports around the world. Awesome though, they track bags, or some bags, maybe not Steve's bag, because, you know, it's stuck in Heathrow somewhere. But I got the call. I was doing a massive program, came back to New Zealand, was taking a rest, because it's important as well. When you go out there and do these big contracts, to back off and take a rest and actually take some time out. I was doing that. I got a call from a guy in Montreal, says, "Hey Max, we've heard about you do this kind of cool funky stuff. What about you come out to Montreal?" And so he flew me out to Montreal. We had this conversation. His brief, if you'd like to call it that, was we want to put a couple of screens up on the wall. We want to track maybe a few airports in Canada and maybe a couple of airports in the US, just to make sure that if any kind of security risks or any kind of events happen, that we can flag it up to the right authority, and away it goes. And to me, I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. It's kind of sexy, fun type project. In Montreal, never been to Montreal, been to Canada and in Vancouver, but never been over that side, French-Canadian side. Yeah, how hard can that be? And cut a long story short, we went out that night. I think I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, back in when I was in the crazy worldly days, and I started the next day. I was expecting to fly back to New Zealand to get my family to come back and to find out if I actually got the contract and then come back. But I think the relationship that I built with the guy and the knowledge and know-how that I had, that I brought to the table of value, kind of sealed the deal. And I think that is, as opposed to everyone else who keeps telling me, oh, you know, I had all these other, you know, you're so lucky, Max, you know, out of Aotearoa, of the mighty Waikato, you know, out you go to Montreal and do this 2-year contract. In essence, when I rocked into Texas and started up this project, I really focused on the people and who the people were that were already there doing the operational side, because this was a greenfield project. And then when I kind of decided, pulled out, as Steve was saying, pulled out what actually we were doing, it hadn't, the brief was so brief, it was less than brief. It was a brief on a brief. And what it turned out to be, very quickly, I'll just leap forward right through into the planning phase, is it was the state of the art kind of 200, almost 200 to 240 different screens, all working together to track every international airport throughout the world. And I was like, where did that come from? And so, we broke it all down, as they were saying. I was saying, well, what is the real why? So that's pretty funky, but why would you do that? Anyway, I just kept asking that why, and the whole startup process took a while, and for valid reasons, because I just kept challenging the why, and et cetera, and it's not broken, so why do we need to fix it, et cetera. But the key thing that I think really I found the funniest thing was I came in with these kind of processes, these Prince 2 process type processes and mindset with all the lessons I'd learned from other projects, and he was, I'd watched Agile on YouTube a few times, and I'd seen, I'd read up about it, and he says, I want Agile, Max, I want Agile. And I said, okay, that sounds good. What is Agile to you? So his Agile thinking was, I just need everyone to turn up at 9 o'clock every morning, and we want to do a stand-up for 15 minutes. That was it. And I said, wow, okay, yeah. Yes and, not no but. We could start with that, and let's see how we go. So away we went down, and we took off out the gate. And basically what I did is I just took some of the Agile principles and blended it in with some of the Prince 2 processes. And in order for everyone, because my audience that I was working with were very operational focused and very quick win focused, and yet I had this other, the Toronto airport and the Vancouver airport people were very waterfall. They were like, nah, we're not starting that until we've done that, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of matching the process or the way I was going to implement this stuff with the people that I had, and it was fun being the first point, and secondly, it taught me a lot as well. I actually learned a lot myself about how to adapt and how to flex, how to be able to ensure that my stakeholders, who weren't actually was the boss that was paying my invoice, but it was actually this whole board from SITA who just wanted this thing up and going. That's pretty much it. There's more on that if you want to reach out, get hold of Scott, who can get hold of me, and I can tell you all about it. But in closing, just to finish off, project management is fun, and it is a good thing to do. And there are project managers, and there are project managers. And what it comes down to, I think, is for me is the you. Like, how do you bring your best A game, right? And game, the word game, G-A-M-E, stands for gifts, aspirations, momentum, and expectations. And if you can bring all those to the table, I think, and you obviously Prince 2, and you know what you're doing. On top of all that, you should have a really good ride. So that's pretty it. That's all I'm here to talk about. Being a project manager, about the methodology and what methodology you use. Any methodology is good as long as you're good at it. And yeah, Agile versus.
Stay in the hot seat though, because there's a few questions.
Nā mihi whānau, nā mihi.
There's a few questions here that you can have a look through and just see if there's. Kia ora rā, awesome. Yeah, definitely. It's about the people, 100% people, process, product, not the other way around, right? Yes, inspiring to have fun, enjoying the journey, 100%. It's a journey. We're going to be here for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You might as well enjoy it, right? Have some fun with it. And the people, it all comes down to the people, and how you relate to the people. Yeah, awesome. Ngā mihi, cool. Yeah. Oh, kia ora. Yep. No problem.
But it's trying to find the benefits of those. So,
Yep.
and I know you have to repeat this but I guess for a tree analogy, I really like it when people plant trees. And one mature and now in lifetime.
Nice.
And I've been wondering where intergenerational benefits and things that we dig out with their children and children's children.
Yeah, what a great question. So the question was, how do we look at the benefits of, and we talked about people and why you do stuff for your family and for their family in this kind of generational type landscape, and what we do today, how does it affect not only our kids but their kids, and what's the benefits of it? That's an amazing question. I think from my perspective, it is key to be able to be an effective ambassador of change, and that not always the status quo is the status quo of everything. And so what I like to do is, if there's something I'm passionate about that I don't see change in, then I'll go out there and find it and actually do it. And the reason I like it is because I believe in it, and it goes past just me and my children, but their children. And when I talk about the benefits in that sense, I almost see, if I could, my children's children look back and say, gee, Dad, what a mess you left us in. Or, wow, if it wasn't for your thinking back then, we wouldn't be in, we'd be in a way worse place than we are today, especially in Aotearoa, right? Which is where we're here. And so I think it's almost you need to, like, as in PM 101, is to think 2-3 tricks down the road, but also for whānau and for iwi, it's definitely something that we look at when I look at my ancestors and what they did for us and the war and etc. to now that we can live this life of freedom, etc. But how much further down the line are we going to? It's almost like a crystal ball, but you've got to be able to translate that into this world that we're living today. Awesome, Ra. Using your passion to drive change to benefit the future generations. Exactly. Awesome, Ra. Thank you for that. Does that answer your question? Yeah. All right, that's us.
Fantastic.
Another one? Yes, very much a tangata whenua approach, 100%. It's great to see that in the project management. Yep, definitely. And it's something that Scott and I talked about. One of the other cool things that, I don't know if maybe it's a bit early, but about having this type of podcast type scenario where we can bring the people together. And you look at all of us here in the audience and here today, there's so much wealth and knowledge and tools and learnings and micro-learning. I think that's your buzzword, Scott, about how you bring all that together and how we can take that into our future generation, right? And how we can learn that, because there's so much going on. We get busy in this world of noise and everything, and we forget sometimes what our real true purpose is. Cool. Awesome.
Thanks, Max.
Hand over to you.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Cheers. Okay, everybody. So thank you very much. I'll try and unpin myself. So I just want to say thank you to Max and to Steve for being available. As you can see, I've got a halo of Scots behind me, which is a bit off-putting actually. I don't quite know how to undo that, but here we go. Remove pin. That'll be it. There we go. I feel, I can see a halo of me plus a halo of Steve. Yeah, thanks very much, guys, for being available. Really appreciate you coming in early. Steve, you staying up late. I really do appreciate that. And also all the audience. I appreciate you guys coming in person. I know it's hard to get up in the morning, and after having 3 years of staying at home and isolation, it's hard to change that mode of thinking and start to interact with people and share germs, which is no doubt something that we're doing. So all those online are going to miss out on that. What a shame. And look, we've got, again, on the 1st and the 2nd of March, we have another couple of these events, first in Auckland, second in Wellington, and they're going to be with Ruth Murray-Webster, and we're looking for local speakers again. We want a local speaker with every presentation. I want to get some local input, as well as blending that. So getting information from overseas, bringing it here, and also using the local information to spread it back and forth between us. So again, thanks very much. You'll see some links in the chats if you want to go and book on those. So any last words there, Steve, before we sort of sign off? Oh no, you're on mute, mate. I'll just ask you on mute. It's the forever. It's the you're on mute.
Yeah. No, for once. No, just to say how refreshing it was to hear Matt's talk and his emphasis on fun, but beyond fun, impact. And the only thought that occurred to me was, the intergenerational stuff that Max was talking about, which we all get fired up about. And then you say, well, let's go and write a cost-benefit case for doing it. Well, some of this stuff goes beyond cost-benefit. The issue is, how do we best do it? We need to, as I was saying last night, we've got to do it. So we must make sure that what we do has the impact that we anticipate, and that we do it in the most cost-effective terms, because there's only so much resources that we have. And that's not just the money, that's the effort and people's enthusiasm. So I thought it was absolutely a wonderful session from Matt. I think it's, if only others could follow in his steps. It's wonderful, really good.
Cool. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'll end the stream now, and we'll see you again in about a month's time.